Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Tan and this is Janae. And we have an exciting class today about Fountainscapes. We're both here with Lyngso, and without further ado, we'll get the class started here. Let's throw up the presentation on the screen and feel free to type in your questions via chat and we'll address them towards the end of the class. Majority of the presentation is going to be a PowerPoint presentation, and then Janae will just sort of show some of the components of the water features, and we'll just zoom into that after the presentations. And feel free to just go ahead and send in your questions. Let's get started. All right. Yeah, yay. So welcome to Fountainscapes 101. I'm excited to be here. A little background on why I am so passionate about water features. I love the way that they connect us to nature and our life source, which is water. They bring a very phenomenal type of beauty and texture to both the art and the experience of a landscape by providing a peaceful and creative space. Water features can rely on a natural balance of circulation, filtration, plants, rocks, gravel, even fish, which can be sustainable to our ecosystems and wildlife. Another thing to note is property that is tastefully landscaped can increase the value of your home by 15% or more, allowing owners to recoup 100 to 200% of their investment at selling time. Of course, this depends on overall house value, but you will see the value when you compare this to the investment recovery rates for kitchen remodeling, bathroom remodeling, and swimming pool additions. So let's dive right in. In this class, I will be covering tips and guidance on how to install a standard water feature, how to choose the correct parts and components based on design goals, how to install and use fire and fountain light add-ons, how to design and install a pondless waterfall, how to maximize the amount of water you save by using a water feature, different methods on how to turn pottery into water features, as well as cleaning and maintenance. So for your most simple, complete fountainscape, the components that you will need, it's going to include rubber lining, a basin or reservoir, a pump, kink-free flexible tubing, something to hold the piping in place, like a felt or a sealant, the fountain piece itself and maybe a mount for it, and gravel or decorative materials to cover the basin and surround the fountain area. Some of the water features that we provide here at Lyngso, here are some examples. We have a lot more options than what you see here. They can vary based on shipment, depending on the style, but all of our stone is naturally sourced. Most of it is basalt, which can be very heavy and last lifetimes. We also have columns. Most of these are also basalt. Again, these are just a few of the options we have available here. We have natural top, polished top, and different types of towers that have special carvings in them as well. All of our water features here vary from a foot or less up to 6 feet tall. So the basins that we provide here are aqua basins from Aquascape. These basins, they have a lot of different areas that make it convenient for both installation and access. So you'll see on the top bottom left-hand corner, there's pump access there. That has a panel that prevents gravel from falling into the basin. There's also a gap right in the corner of the panel access of the basin where you can run any electrical cords through, for example, if you were adding lighting. All the little cylinders that you see on the top of the basin are areas where you can drill for lighting ports, or if you're adding multiple fountains as you see, you can customize each one of those deck cylinders. On the edging of the basin, there is drainage slots, and that's where the water goes down and back in to recirculate. The basin itself is made of high dense polyethylene construction professional grade material that's meant to be durable and last and be prone to weathering. The two types of aqua basins that is provided is going to be a small aqua basin 30, which carries 500 pounds and has a max pump rate of 2,000 gallons per hour and holds 27 gallons of water total. The larger basin itself, it holds 1,500 pounds, 98 gallons of water, and has a max pump size of 4,000 gallons per hour. Sometimes your installation might require something like an aqua blocks rather than a basin. These aqua blocks, they might take a little bit more work to assemble, but they hold 3 times more water storage than gravel. Per square foot, they can hold 5,472 pounds. So when you have larger installations where you need more customized space or weight, then you would want to use the aqua blocks. They could also be used for smaller installations as well. You will see more visual examples of how we use the aqua blocks as we go along. So when choosing a water pump, you'll want to know the height of the features you're considering and consider the head size of how far you want the water to go above those fountains to determine the pump size. Aquascape has 2 categories of pump, both statuary water pumps and ultra water pumps. The statuary are smaller pumps that have 70 to 320 gallons per hour flow rates. And they only come in 1/2-inch adapters for the tubing. The ultra pumps, they're available in 6 different models with maximum flow rates of 400 to 2,000 gallons per hour. And they have adapters that come in both 1/2-inch and 3/4 inch. It's important to pay attention to which pump you're choosing because depending on your fountain piece, it can be really important. For the tubing, when you're measuring the piping that goes from the pump into the fountain and then out the exit point, you'll want to add the height of the features and then add a few extra feet for the slack that's needed to connect it to the pump. For reference purposes, each pump does contain a performance chart that shows you the recommended tubing length, the max flow rate of the pump, the max head height, and options for the outlet diameter. So you want to refer to this carefully when you're choosing a pump, especially because you can always turn the water pressure down on these types of pumps, but if it's too low, you can't turn it. Yes, you can turn the water pressure up, but not down. Not up. You can turn it down, but not up. Sorry. That would tongue twisted my words. So these are the adapters and connectors that are included in the pumps. So the under 800, those ones have coupling that doesn't include anything that has 3/4 besides the hose adapter. So when you're looking at the couplings, you'll see that all the pumps above 1100 include a 3-way valve. So if you're doing multiple fountains, you'll want to make sure that you're choosing the correct piece. This is an example of an ultra water pump flow chart, similar to the ones that are in the back of the pumps. So if you look on the left-hand column, you'll see the different models of the pumps, and you'll see the max head height and then the application head height. So when you're matching these up, for example, if I had 2 columns that were around 4 feet and I created extra foot or 2 for the slack, I would have a maximum application head height of 10 feet with the max head height of likely around 12. So you would want to go with the 1100 gallon per hour pump. So when you are ready to install a standard water feature, there's a few things you want to consider when you are choosing a location. So every pump needs a nearby electric outlet. So you want to accommodate wiring or choose your location where it can reach. Depending on where you want your fountain piece to sit, you'll want to be able to enjoy it. So place it near windows or patios or seating areas so you can sit near it or view it up close. When you're choosing a basin and a pump, you'll make sure that it's the correct one for the size and the weight of your water feature before you mark the area for excavation. One thing to note before you dig on your own is to always put safety first. It's hard to tell where your utility lines are. So if you call this number here, they will come out to your property if needed, and they will flag or mark with chalk the areas where you have water lines or utility wires, so you can avoid digging and interfering with any of those things. So after you do that, you can draft an accurate plan, mapping out where all your pipes, plumbing, and electrical will go, so you can make sure you're not digging in the wrong area. So when you are measuring the hole, based on the size of your basin, you'll want to mark and dig an inch deeper than the height of the basin that you're using. Some people do prefer a liner between the basin and the dirt to keep it protected. It's not necessary, but it is recommended to increase the longevity of your basin. So before you place the basin inside the hole, you'll want to compact your soil down as much as you can to prevent any sinking after the install, and to make sure that your measurement of that 1 inch isn't too deep. Once you place the basin in the ground, you'll fill the sides and the gaps with the dirt that you dug out to hold it in place. So then you'll grab your pump and your tubing, and you'll stick the tubing through the fountain piece and place the fountain onto the basin and run the tubing into the basin through the pre-healed hole. Make sure the fountain is secured by mounting or adhering it to panels, which I will show an example of soon. You might need extra help if you need someone to hold the fountain in place while you continue to run the piping down into the basin. So once you have your pump in the basin and you connected all the correct adapters, it's best to seal the tubing at the water's exit point at the top of the fountain. This can be done using a piece of felt, or a better alternative would be a foam sealant. Aquascape does have their own black foam sealant specifically used for water fountains, but there are other options you can find at hardware stores as well. So this is an example of adhering or mounting a fountain onto caps. This is to prevent the fountain from leaning or falling over, especially when you're using super heavy, tall water features. When you're doing this, you just want to make sure that you're leaving adequate space for the tubing to still run into the fountain and to the pump. And then I keep up here as well. So now in the installation process, the basin is secure. You've backfilled and leveled everything. The correct attachments are attached to the pump. The pump is inside the basin, and the piping is perfect. The fountain is mounted and leveled if needed. So what's next? So the final steps of completing a standard water feature setup is to add any lighting before you place the gravel. You'll add any column lights now as well. You'll see a little picture of an example of someone pressing one in with their thumb. That electrical has to also run down the fountain as well. So all the electrical from the pump and the lighting will run through a gap that's connected to the access panel. That little triangle that you saw where you can go in and out the basin has a small gap where you can run all the electrical out. So once you've done that, then you can get ready to add your gravel. Most people would want to wash and dust off the gravel first so that your water isn't murky when you first start the fountain. So after you've added all your gravel and rocks or anything else that you would want to cover the basin or around the fountain, you can fill the basin with water. You just fill by pouring over the top of the gravel, and you'll turn on the pump and boom, you're in action. This is an example of a garden and pond light kit from Aquascape, where it's all inclusive. It comes with 3 pre-wired LED lights that have a 40,000 hour bulb lifespan and a 5-year warranty. These lights are known to be extremely energy efficient, minimizing costs up to 90% of savings compared to regular halogen lighting. The cool thing about this kit is that it has a quick connect photo cell with a timer where you can customly automate your lights to turn on at a certain time. Another thing to note about Aquascape lighting is they do have color changing as well. The color changing components for the lights, for the regular lights and the color changing lights are different. So if you are going with color changing lights, they're not compatible with the splitters or the extension cables that go with the regular lights. That's something to pay attention to when you are purchasing or considering adding light add-ons to your fountains. The color changing lights do require a small control hub and a low voltage transformer, which are sold separately in order to power, connect, and automate and manage the lights. I have a really good diagram coming up that shows you exactly how those things are connected. The cool thing about those is they have a smart control app where you can control your lights with your smartphone or tablet from anywhere. And then this diagram here shows you exactly how the hub and the transformer work with the color changing lights. So if you did already have white lights and you wanted to add a color changing splitter, you can. It's just, if you look on the right, you'll see that the white lights go directly into the transformer. They cannot be connected to the hub or the splitter, but you can still combine the two. So you can run them separately as their own if you just wanted color changing lights, and there's still a way to have both white lights and color changing lights as well. Seeing how these work visually can make your light add-on installation a lot smoother. Aquascape has amazing videos on how to install, use, and connect these lighting setups based on your design goals. So I would definitely recommend watching those if you're considering adding an extensive amount of lighting to your garden. Okay. So pondless waterfalls. So when installing a pondless waterfall, it is pretty similar to a regular water feature. Besides with, there's a lot more design and work that goes into creating where the water flows. So when you excavate for a pondless waterfall, you'll want to plan enough room for the catch basin. If you look at the diagrams up above, you'll see the catch basins are at the bottom of the water flow. So again, also with these, you'll want to face it towards windows or patios, seating areas where you can enjoy it. And once you excavate the area, you can use the dirt that you dug out to create an elevated berm, a raised barrier on the perimeter of the waterfall. So if you are creating a longer waterfall, you want to twist and turn the direction of the excavation for it to have a more natural look than a straight line. This can be the funnest part of designing a waterfall. You can easily get inspired by nature itself or other designers that have done different things. Once you excavated the area, you cover it with a liner, usually the same rubber one that we would use in the ponds or under a basin. And then whether you are choosing rocks or using existing rocks that you have, you'll want to create a tiered look for the waterfall. Most designers like to use flat slabs that go in the middle of the waterfall that sit in between the bordering stones. This way, as you can see in the diagrams, it creates kind of like treads or steps where the water can flow. So when you're measuring the drops of a waterfall, you want to plan them accordingly to your design goal. So you can start by placing the large ones where you want each drop to be. So the vertical elevation of the initial drop, so where the water completely starts at the top of the waterfall, it usually doesn't need to be extreme, usually just 2 or 3 feet of drop, unless you're planning a very big, tall, or larger waterfall. And after the initial drop, several smaller drops that you can measure, usually 4 to 9 inches per one drop, no more than like 18 to 20 inches, can help a waterfall blend nicely into the landscape. When looking at the stones that you're using to frame the waterfall, you'll want the drops to be proportional to the size of the stones, meaning that some of the main rocks on the waterfall should be several inches larger than the initial drop of the waterfall. For example, a drop of 12 inches should use rocks behind it or around it at the top that are 16 inches in diameter for it to look in scale with the project. So once your area is excavated with space for the catch basin to be leveled, the drops are measured, the liner is placed, you can install the catch basin components of the waterfall. So depending on which one you're using, which manufacturer you choose, you're installing a circulating pump into the catch basin area. So you would want to make whatever plumbing connections are necessary to link the pump to the piping or tubing that will eventually connect to the top of the waterfall. So after installing the aqua blocks, here they make their grand appearance, then you'll backfill with soil around the catch basin area to hold everything in place. And you'll lay some rocks and river gravel to hide the top of the catch basin area. But you're going to be sure to leave access for all of the electrical from the pump or any lighting that you're going to be adding. So this is the time where you would want to add your lights too. So you would place your lights, you can add them now or you can add them after, depending on where exactly you want them to show. But you're just going to want to keep in mind to create space to run that electrical, depending on where you're putting them now before you start framing and adding everything else. So in the background of this slide, these are examples of wall rock and boulders that we have here at Lyngso that I think are perfect for building and lining a waterfall. The one from the left to the right, you'll see green basalt, Lancaster boulders, cold water canyon dry stack, and in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see Napa wall rock. So when you start framing the waterfall and you're keeping all those things in mind, you're going to want to hide the spillway component. The spillway component is where the initial water comes out from the top of the waterfall. The space where the spillway component sits needs to be completely flat and angled slightly downward for a downhill slope like a waterfall would go. And you connect the piping that you ran from the circulation pump to the spillway box, and you're going to want to seal that piping somehow by using a solvent glue or compression fittings that may have came with the pump already. So your final steps of a pondless waterfall is you might want to bring in extra soil to build up the berm. As you see around the waterfall on the sides, you want that to be raised. And then you'll fill any gaps where the liner is exposed with your choice of the stones or gravel you're using, hide any remaining cords. At this time, you can trim away any excess liner. You can test the waterfall now by filling the catch basin. Once full all the way, turn on the pump, run the waterfall for a few hours or so, and then go and inspect to make sure water isn't spilling or escaping out where it shouldn't. One thing I wanted to touch on with water features is that, yes, they already circulate and recycle the water that they use with minimal replenishing, but there is a way to maximize the amount of water you're saving with the water feature. If you look at the diagram here, you'll see a regular fountain setup using aqua blocks. They have a pump vault, and they have the liners, everything. That's like the regular setup that we kind of went through. What they added here was a downspout filter. So that runs any rainwater off from your roof down into a filter that pumps it back into the fountain, which then recirculates it. Or you can have an overflow infiltration area, which you see to the right, where any excess water, overflow water goes into that area. And you see in the diagram, they have that under a tree. That's done on purpose so that that can go back into the ground and be recycled nutrients for the existing plants that they have. The biggest reason why this is important is because a lot of people don't realize how much water we use just based on landscape irrigation alone. A lot of rainfall, sprinklers, and then combined with the average water use per household outdoors in general, it averages a lot. It's tens of thousands of gallons per year that you could be saving. So if you're interested in something like this, Aquascape provides a lot of different kits and components based on your installation requirements. And they actually have a calculator which shows you how much water you could collect and which kit would be the best for your design goals. This is another example of a rainwater harvesting system. I wanted to show this example because this is a hardscape example. So you don't have to have dirt or mulch or gravel. This is installed in a way for where all the water runs through the pavers. The pavers are permeable, and there is an underground, there's a mesh that collects the water and directs it towards the catch basin underneath the fountain there. This system is connected to the irrigation system that they also have here in this example, so that any excess water from your sprinklers also runs down into the recirculating filtration system. This would also include an overflow management where excess water would be directed somewhere else or directed to other plants so that no water is wasted. So water is the most essential, perishable, and precious resource on Earth. Discussing water features, you cannot ignore that the freshwater supply, especially in California, is limited, and the need to save it is very important. I'm not going to go over every single point on this infographic, but I wanted to share it with you because it does show based on what type of trees you have, when and how you should water them, and the tips they have below, I feel everyone should know. Okay, and exciting. So using Lyngso pottery as a fountainscape. So the Lyngso pottery that we have here is heavy and large, and usually the most common installation would be to have it completely submerged or integrated into a pond where there's enough water to fill the pot completely and have it overflow out the top rim. But there is a way to have a water feature without having it submerged in a pond, as you see on the left. The most common way is to seal the top several inches inside the pot so that it can catch the water without having to fill the entire pot. But it's important that you're able to choose a pump that can lift the water above the height of the top of the flower pot for the overflow to happen. So if you are choosing that method, then you would want to measure 6 or plus inches higher than the top of the pot to have that overflow that you see in the pictures to the left. Another way you can is if you seal the bottom of the pot completely and you place the pump inside the pot, fill it up with water, and the pot itself can act like its own reservoir. and recirculate the water just inside the pot without it having to sit on a basin. Another way is once the pot is set up with the basin, piping in a pump, you can put something inside of the pot to hold the piping in place, such as gravel, cylinder blocks, things like that, and then fill the top with gravel and have the water overflow like that. These would have to be installed with a large basin or aqua box to support the weight. So here's some examples of what I was referring to. So the very top middle picture is an installation that you'll see. They're using a basin. They have cinder blocks that are going to go inside the basin to support the weight of the vase. And then all the components there that you see are also on the right. It is a spout head kit that they use. This connects to the piping that you have on the pump to create the effect that you see on the top left. On the bottom pictures here, you'll see an example on the bottom left of someone completely submerging the pump into the pot so that it can create its own reservoir. If you are doing this, you see that she used, it looks like a plastic container to raise up the pump. That's something that you're likely want to do so that you can have the maximum overflow of water. And then the bottom right too is an example of somebody sealing at the top of a pot so that the water doesn't have to fill up all the way. What they would do then after they place that piece is seal it with silicone or caulk to make sure that the water doesn't go inside the pot. So the biggest difference between these two installations where you're using the pottery with the basin, similar to how you would do a standard setup, or creating the pot as its own reservoir is, well, one is very stationary. If you're digging in the ground and you're putting a basin in there, you're less likely to be able to move that around. Where the left one can be moved around your garden as long as it's not too heavy, it's not stationary, it's not just confined to that one space above a basin. You'll see on the right here a better visual of how she used the pot as its own reservoir. She plugged the drainage holes with rubber plugs using silicone caulk, sealing around the exposed area of each plug, leaving space for the cord. Now, most of our pots only have one plug there, so it would be very easy to seal it off. She used a plastic bucket and drilled into it to thread the cord through and place it upside down to leverage the pump. And then she attached the spray nozzle and filled it up with water and gravel, and that was it. So these are pictures of the pottery that we have here at Lyngso. The picture on the left might be hard to see because it was shaded, but that is an example of a pot sitting submerged into a pond where the water just overflows at the top. If you consider adding fire add-ons in a garden pot, they are compatible, but you will have to get creative on how to hold a fire kit in place. So the fire kits that Aquascape provide, all you have to do is add paraffin or citronella fuel, and it's made of stainless steel, can last for years, but it has to sit inside of something. So before you put it on top of a water feature or on top of a pot, it needs a holding dish that is fireproof. The urns that Aquascape sells automatically already have a space for this fire kit to sit in, but it doesn't mean that you can't get creative and create something out of cast iron, copper, concrete, or anything fire graded for this to sit in. So here's an example of the urns you see. This is an Aquascape product that Lyngso can special order upon request. These fire urns are a few $1,000s, but they do come fully assembled and they light up with the touch of a button for your convenience. You can still have the luxury of a fire add-on feature with the urn if you're willing to do some work and get a little crafty with sourcing a holder for the fire add-on kit. The fire add-on kit itself is less than $200, can last for years, is compatible with most of our pottery here at Lyngso. And what you'll see on the right here is the torch system for the basalt fountain. This is something provided by Aquascape where you can buy it in a set of 3 or singular. These would have to be installed at the time of installation. It'd be very difficult to add these after you already installed your fountains and they're already set up. Just be mindful that these fire add-ons can be used with real basalt towers, not the faux basalt towers from Aquascape. They're not compatible with this add-on. Lyngso does carry only naturally sourced stone, so our basalt towers will always be compatible with these types of fire add-ons. So what type of wildlife will water features attract? Most water features attract birds, definitely. Sparrows, blue jays, cardinals, hummingbirds, crows. You'll see a lot of different insects as far as mosquitoes, butterflies, dragonflies, water bugs. Depending on the area you live in, you can even attract frogs, toads, and newts, salamanders, or other aquatic life. If issues arrive with predators coming for your fish, let's say you have a water feature that's in a pond or existing pond, I do suggest always having fish caves, bridges, and plant coverings for them to seek safety and hide when predators do come. If mosquitoes start to be a problem because they are so attracted to the water, you can place a BTI dunk. It's a certain type of bacteria that's natural and environmentally safe, super effective for preventing mosquitoes from multiplying in your water feature. So as far as cleaning a water feature, the maintenance is usually done as needed. When you see that the debris or algae or calcium buildup, which is like those white stains that can accumulate on stones, especially natural stone, you can turn off the pump and you can use a brush or a scrub the algae off and debris. If you need to clean the water or replace the water, you can drain the reservoir. There is a service that you could probably seek out where they will remove all the water and debris at the bottom of the basin, but it needs a certain type of wet dry vacuum, which is a service you usually would pay for. As far as if something to treat the water, Aquascape has an automatic dosing system, which automatically adds a solution to it during the day, which will prevent all the water issues that you see as far as algae debris, calcium buildup, and it's also pet friendly. So here's an example of how that automatic dosing system would work, both for pondless waterfalls or a regular aqua basin setup. So you'll see on the left there, it does have to sit outside of the feature, but it'll be connected and sourced directly into the water. Each treatment lasts up to 1 full season. And that concludes my presentation. So now I'm opening it up to any questions or anything to add. If you have a more intricate question that requires a lengthy response, I'll be more than happy to discuss it with you outside of this Zoom presentation, and you can email me there.
Okay, so we do have some questions from the chat, but we'll do the DIY stuff after we address the questions here.
Okay.
So first question, is there a timer available for the pump? Like the lights and stuff Aquascape provides?
I know that the timer that they have for the lights, they definitely have automation for that. As far as if it also can be connected to a pump at the same time, I'm not sure if that's possible. As far as like automation for the actual pump itself outside of lights, I do believe Aquascape has some components for that as well.
And then, can a bird bath be incorporated into a water feature, or is there a bird bath feature for water features?
There is bird bath features we have here at Lyngso. They are like our basalt towers that are maybe 3 or 4 feet tall that are dished in. I think we might have a picture of them. Those aren't used as water features because they're not drilled. So there's nowhere to put any piping into it, unfortunately. So they can be used as a water feature in your garden, but it would just be standing water, sitting water. Now, if you were to get it drilled, if you wanted like a bird bath as a fountain thing, you would have to make sure you safely have it drilled so that you can run the tubing through it. There are also some water features that already look like that are already drilled that you might want to look into as well. But yeah, on slide number 5, there's a picture of our little bird baths.
For some reason, it's just we're having technical difficulties at the moment, but let's just go through.
Man, I don't know if you could zoom in, but.
Yeah, I don't think it's happening, but I think we could see it here.
Yeah, it's down there at your bottom right. There's in the picture where you see a large lot of those, there's these small bird baths that they look just like water features, but they just don't have a hole in the middle. So that's the difference.
I guess that was it, right?
Mhm.
These, and then these here. Okay. Let me stop sharing and then we can do the.
Okay, more
Okay.
questions?
I think that's it. So we can just kind of.
Is there any type of attachment to the top of the tube for the tall tulip style bubbler? Yes.
Oh yeah, is there any type of attachment to add to the top?
Yes,
Top of the tube, yeah. I think you answered that in the talk as well.
I did. It was going to be,
It'd be easier if this presentation can be shared, but let's see. Which slide was that on?
It's on slide 32. So it's a fountain head kit that you'll see in the top right corner. That does the same effect as the picture that you see in the left-hand corner. If that's what you're referring to, the tulip style bubbler. It's an Aquascape product that does that. It's an attachment, yes.
I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
The last thing I wanted to kind of demonstrate or show what is an example of a small fountain setup here. This, I don't know if you can see me. Oh yeah, you can see me. So this is one of our basalt fountains here with the polished top. The pebbles that we have a variety of decorative pebbles that are specifically meant for things, smaller decorative ideas like fountains like this. To give an example of what those would look like around the fountain I have that's here. For example, we have like wood grain, then we have the these green ones are green basalt or green.
I think we have jade green,
Yeah,
wasabi.
Wasabi. There's the smaller mixed pebbles. There's red pebbles, black shiny pebbles. The shiny decorative pebbles look a little different when water hits them compared to the non-shiny pebbles. And then these are examples of how big some of our pottery gets here. This is still a medium size. So we have some that are actually this big. And this is the smallest urn that we have. but we have other smaller pots that are not in this shape. To give you an idea of what it would look like to include a water feature. When I was talking about the pondless waterfall, then I was speaking about those flat pieces that fit in between the bordering stones. This is an example of like some flagstone that we have here. This is quartz. The reason why I like the quartz is because it's super sparkly. There's like diamond reflective things that you can't see on this camera that reflect off the water, and it's thin enough to transport yourself and to build up your treads for a water fountain. And these are examples of the pumps and what they look like from Aquascape, if you're not familiar with them. And then the components that come with it that I was talking about cooking come in a bag and look kind of like this.
It's hard to see.
It's hard to see.
It's better with pictures on the PowerPoint. I think.
It's better with the pictures on the PowerPoint. This piece right here is very important. I didn't go over it in the PowerPoint, but a lot of times it's an elbow piece. A lot of times when you place your pump inside of your basin, you don't want your piping to go straight up from the pump. You're gonna want to angle it at a certain angle so that it doesn't kink or get hit on the top. So that's what this piece is for, and I didn't go over that. But yes, there's no further questions.
Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. It was a pretty brief presentation. However, there's a lot of information covered in the PowerPoint. So this class, as always, is being recorded, and I've shared the link via chat. So just go to community resources on Lyngso's page and you can find the presentation along with the instructions on the DIY stuff. Short and sweet. Thank you, Janae.
Thank you.
Alrighty, thanks everybody.
It's all.